You may call your first witness.
Defense calls Dr. Brian Falls.
Would you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Tap up and see if that's something. Yeah, there's some switch on the bottom side of it, right up here at the top of the mic.
There you go.
Probably need to be pretty close to the mic. Maybe there. That's good.
Go ahead and adjust that as you need to, because it's a little hard to hear. Would you state your name, please, for the record?
Brian Falls, MD.
And Dr. Falls, you're a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Where do you practice?
Austin, Texas.
And how long have, let me ask you this, where did you go to undergraduate school?
At Baylor University.
And where did you go to medical school?
University of Texas Medical Branch.
And where did you intern?
Harvard Medical School, South Shore Psychiatry Residency Program.
And did you also do your residency there, or where did you do your residency?
Yes, Harvard Medical School, South Shore Psychiatry Residency Program in Boston.
And then did you practice anywhere else after Massachusetts?
I did a fellowship in forensic psychiatry at the University of California, Davis Medical Center in Sacramento, California.
And how long have you been a practicing psychiatrist?
5 years.
And have you, do you have certifications as a result of that specialty?
Yes, I'm board certified by the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology in general psychiatry. I'm board certified by the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology in forensic psychiatry. And I'm board certified in addiction medicine by the American Board for Meth Medicine.
And what we're discussing here would fall within forensic psychiatry.
Yes.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what training you need to become a forensic psychiatrist?
Yes, well, you mentioned some of it. First, you go through medical school, which is 4-year training in medicine. And as I mentioned, I did that at the University of Texas Medical Branch. And then after that, you do a specialized training program in psychiatry. And so I did 4 years, including my internship, 4 years at the Harvard Medical School, South Shore Psychiatric Residency Program that I told you about. And then beyond that, I did an additional year of training in forensic psychiatry, a fellowship at the University of California, Davis Medical Center.
Now, do you also have to pass tests in order to achieve that designation?
Yes, there's many tests along the way.
And do you also have the ability as a medical doctor to prescribe medication as part of your practice?
Yes.
And is that necessary for psychiatric practice to prescribe medicine?
Is it necessary? No.
Do you have a authorization by the DEA to prescribe medication?
Yes.
And does that also require a test?
Well, you have to be an MD in the state of Texas to prescribe medications. And said, well, there are other mid-level providers that have prescribing privileges as well, but they usually are supervised by a physician.
What is your current occupation? I know you're a psychiatrist, but are you in private practice, or what do you do?
Currently, I work as a psychiatrist doing telepsychiatry remotely from my home, providing care to people who are in facilities in California.
Now, let me ask you this, are you licensed to practice medicine and psychiatry in the state of Texas?
Yes.
Are you licensed to practice medicine and psychiatry in the state of Massachusetts?
Yes.
Are you licensed to practice medicine and psychiatry in the state of California?
Yes.
Now, in conjunction with this case, did we ask you to evaluate Kody Lott for purposes of determining whether or not he was sane or insane on September 2nd, 2016, surrounding the shooting and death of Lauren Vassos and the shooting of Michaela Smith?
Yes, everything you said was correct, except that her name is Lauren Vasso.
Did I not say that? I'm sorry. And did you, and without getting into the opinions yet, but did you do that for us?
Yes.
Have you done other sanity evaluations for the court system?
Yes.
And have you also done what we call as competency evaluation?
Yes.
As a result of this case, did you examine Kody Austin Lott? In other words, talk to him in an interview?
Yes.
And on how many occasions did you do that?
Twice.
And did you also review other records in order to make a determination as to his sanity?
Yes.
What records did you review?
I looked at the medical records from the UT Harris County Psychiatric Center. I looked at his medical records from Rusk State Hospital. I looked at the police incident report from the Wichita Falls Police Department. Let's see what else I looked at. He had visited a facility in Houston for substance use residential treatment, and that was called Centacor. I did the records for that. And then in terms of paper records, that's what I looked at.
Now, with regard to the interview of Kody, let me ask you this. When you're conducting a sanity evaluation, and you interview a person, what's the course of that interview, or what are the type of things that you're looking for? Just generally.
Just generally, you'll usually start the interview with why you're there. So you ask them their understanding of why they're there, and then you get kind of a history of the events leading up to maybe why they're there, or what's been going on with them recently. Then you get an idea of their psychiatric history, and so you take an oral history from them about what has happened with them, with their any previous mental health issues or any previous treatment that they may have received, any previous psychiatric hospitalizations, any safety issues like whether they've attempted suicide. And then you will also obtain a medical history, going through any medical problems that they may have, medications that they're currently prescribed or taking, any allergies to any medications. They'll take a substance use history, which includes from their first use of any substances all the way up into the present. Discuss the use of the substances, the impact the substances have on their life and on their function. You take generally a social and developmental history, which is kind of asking them about their life from birth all the way up to the present, and who they live with, how they were raised, where they grew up, all those types of things, what they're doing now. Taking an occupational history, educational history, learning about their job, their education, and then we typically in psychiatry will also obtain a family history, which is a history of any mental health issues in family members, any history of substance use problems in family members, any history of attempted or completed suicide among family members. And then we also do what's called a mental status examination. In physical medicine, they do a physical examination. Most of us are familiar with that when the doctor will listen to our hearts or poke around on our abdomen, or look at the area that we're complaining about. In psychiatry, we do a mental status examination, which is observing the individual throughout the evaluation as well. Observing their emotional expression, their behaviors, things like that.
Were you able to, doctor, do that examination with Kody?
Yes.
How long does an examination like that ordinarily take?
Can rate that up. What do you mean by ordinarily?
Well, I mean, is there it takes hours, I presume, or?
Well, there's a clinical evaluation, which generally we may not spend as much time on as in forensic cases. And so, in a clinical setting, if you're doing an initial evaluation for somebody just the first time you're meeting them, it may take about an hour.
This type of an evaluation, how long does it take?
It could take much longer. It's some of the more high-profile cases I've heard of taking up to 20 to 30 hours over the course of several days.
How long did your evaluation or your examination interview with Kody?
It's been about almost 7 hours with the total.
Okay. Did you also get a history of the crime that occurred that we spoke about, the Bassos shooting?
From Mr. Lott or from other records?
From any other method?
Yes, from the Wichita Falls Police Department report. And from Mr. Lott, he told me about what happened.
The records you mentioned, I just want to address the Harris County records. Was that a hospitalization that occurred before September 2nd, 2016?
Yes.
And what did you glean from that, those records in that hospitalization regarding Mr. Lott?
Mr. Lott had a serious mental illness.
What was his diagnosis at the time that he was at that hospital?
They gave him a discharge diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder.
Now, is that a major psychotic illness?
Yes.
What is a major psychotic illness? Can you explain to the jury what that is?
Yeah, so a major psychotic illness is an illness in which an individual has their brain makes it so that they lose touch with reality. And so in case of schizoaffective disorder, for example, a person can have what we call hallucinations, which are hearing or seeing things that aren't there, hearing or seeing things that other people don't hear or see. They can have, or they can even have other senses affected too, like a sense of smell or sense of taste, sense of touch, so they can smell things maybe that aren't there, taste things that aren't there sometimes, feel things that aren't there. But generally, what we see most often is auditory or visual hallucinations, which again is seeing things that aren't there that other people don't see, or hearing noises, usually voices, that other people can't hear. People with this illness will also usually have delusions, and delusions are a fixed false belief. So that means an incorrect belief that other people in the community don't typically hold. And so, believing, for example, if a person believed that they were Superman or Jesus Christ or something like that, that would be a delusion, because it's not true, but it's something that they believe, and they can't be convinced. Usually, it's very difficult to convince them otherwise. And then people can also show what we call disorganized thought, and so they'll often have their thoughts will be very disorganized. It'll be very hard for them sometimes to put together a sentence or a paragraph or to make sense. But when they talk, a lot of people may have difficulty following them and understanding what they're saying. And and they can also exhibit disorganized behavior. So they might be doing things that seem strange or unusual. And sometimes those things that they're doing are in response to the hallucinations that we talked about. Like they may hear a voice telling them to do something, and they start doing something that is strange. Or they might just be doing that for no apparent reason. And then also people can, with these types of disorders, can also exhibit what we call catatonic symptoms, which is usually another form of what appears to be behavior where people will go in certain postures or do certain movements that appear strange, or they may repeat certain words over and over again, things like that. So that's what I just described to you is kind of what we're referring to when we talk about a psychotic illness. It means a loss of touch with reality because a person is having usually two or more of the symptoms that I just told you about: hallucinations, delusions, disorganized speech and behavior, catatonic behavior.
Doctor, that's we describe generally psychotic illness. Are there specific? Well, let me ask you this: is there a standard, a book, or a set of standard principles and criteria that categorize mental disorders?
Yes.
And what is that?
We use the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the 5th edition, also known as the DSM-5.
Is that a standard that's used throughout the United States?
Yes.
Is it also a standard used throughout the world?
Yes.
And that's the 5th edition. I assume there's been previous editions that were used at different times.
That's correct.
Now, you mentioned that Kody had a discharge diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder from Harris County Hospital. Does schizoaffective disorder have symptoms or criteria that must be identified?
Yes.
What are those criteria to explain?
Yes, a person needs to have 2 out of the 5 symptoms that I just described: hallucinations, delusions, disorganized speech behavior, or catatonic behavior. Those need to be present together during the span of a month. And then the entire illness duration has to be longer than 6 months to be able to make the diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder. In addition, schizoaffective disorder also has what we call mood symptoms. So people may have prominent depressive symptoms, which means symptoms of depression, which include like depressed mood, a loss of interest in things, loss of pleasure in things, loss of appetite, low energy, changes in weight, or appetite for food. And often people will have, or sometimes people will have preoccupations with death or suicidal thoughts, or even will attempt suicide. They also can have problems with sleep, insomnia, or sleeping too much.
I don't want there to be any confusion. The disorder that you talked about, schizoaffective disorder, you talked about mood component of that we're talking about separate and apart from depression. Is that correct? This is a different disorder than just depression.
Well, people would still have depressive episodes that look very similar to those present in major depressive disorder, but at the same time they have these psychotic symptoms that I've talked about. And
Can a person with schizoaffective disorder appear and act rationally to untrained people?
Yes.
Now, when you evaluated Kody Lott, did you identify any of the symptoms that you talked about here today?
Yes.
And what symptoms did you identify with Kody Austin Lott specifically?
Mr. Lott had prominent delusions. He had beliefs that other people don't hold that were false. He had hallucinations that he described to me, visual and auditory hallucinations. He had...
Now let me stop there for a second. What's the difference between a visual and auditory hallucination?
Oh yeah, a visual hallucination is something that you see that's not there in reality, and an auditory hallucination is something that you hear that's not there in reality. And sometimes they can happen together.
Okay, okay, continue. What else did you see in symptom-wise?
So I mentioned delusions and hallucinations. I also saw a very prominent disordered thought. So when I was speaking to him, he was rambling a lot. He was very tangential, which means he was going off on tangents in the conversation a lot. And his train of thought was very difficult to follow. Very difficult to follow. He didn't make much sense at times.
What other symptoms did you observe?
Let's see. That was pretty much it during my evaluation with him. He did mention to some degree the depressive symptoms as well.
Is there negative?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot to mention the negative symptoms. Yes, so the symptoms that I mentioned thus far are all what we call positive symptoms, which means they're things that normal people don't have, but people with schizophrenia have. Negative symptoms are things that normal people have that people with schizoaffective disorder don't typically show, and those would be like outward emotional expression. Usually people tend to be more expressionless. They can be more socially reserved or withdrawn. They can be less motivated or appear to have less energy, less goal-directed behavior, things like that. So he also exhibited some of those as well.
Did you make a diagnosis of him or concur with the schizoaffective disorder?
Yes, I made it's my opinion, with reasonable medical certainty that he meets DSM-5 criteria for a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder of depressive type.
And now, are you familiar with the legal definition of insanity in Texas?
Yes.
And what are the components of that definition?
A person has to be suffering from a mental disease or defect, and then as a result of that mental disease or defect, they have to not have a knowledge of the wrongfulness of their conduct at the time of the alleged offense.
Now, let me step away from Kody Lott for a second. And you described major psychotic illnesses. You've also described the schizoaffective disorder. Well, let me ask you this, whether or not schizoaffective disorder qualifies as a severe mental illness or defect in Texas.
Yes, it's a severe.
And is that disorder and psychotic disorder the type of disorder that would cause a person to not know what they were doing was wrong?
Yes, it can.
Now, that's not the only disorder, but there are other disorders that we haven't discussed that aren't relevant, but they would be also major psychotic disorders. Is that right?
That's correct.
Such as schizophrenia.
That's correct.
And would a person with a major psychotic disorder, or specifically with schizoaffective disorder, would they be able to remember what they had done?
It depends on the person. Depends on the person. People can have cognitive deficits, pretty pronounced cognitive deficits in schizoaffective disorder, to where they're unable to think properly or to remember things properly.
Now, did Kody lie? Was he able to remember the events that formed the basis of this trial? In other words, the shootings that took place September 2nd, 2016.
He recounted them to me pretty accurately in a way that was similar to the way that he told the, Officer Vermillion, Officer Killingsworth, and Officer CS.
Okay. And did he explain to you why he shot these girls?
Yes.
What did he explain?
He had a lot of reasons for doing so, and that's fine.
Okay. Let's go with you mentioned delusions as a symptom. Was there any delusional aspect of his thought process in shooting these girls?
Yes.
What was that?
He believed that Lauren was an angel, and that she couldn't die, and that by shooting her, he was sending her to another dimension. He believed that he was sacrificing himself and his freedom for her, for the betterment of the world, and he had a belief that there was this cosmic battle between good and evil, and that he was to get God involved. He maintained a position mostly with me that he was working for the devil or working in league with the devil, but he believed that he was getting God involved and getting God's attention, so that God or Jesus would come down to earth to intervene to stop the abuse of people that he believed was going on kind of all over the world. He was mostly concerned that children were being sacrificed and things like that, and he felt that to do this would draw God's attention to this issue, and that those things would stop. He also expressed a belief that, and I think he said this to the officers as well, he expressed a belief that he was saving Lauren in some sense too, because he said that he believed something far worse was going to happen to her than what he did. The only thing that I recall that he said that would have been far worse was that he said that she was going to be raped at a party. He didn't mention anything else to me other than that. He may have had other ideas. I don't know.
Was there a mention also of a jealousy aspect?
Yes. In addition to he mentioned a lot of different reasons for doing it, and throughout the evaluation, he told me a lot of different things that would appear to contradict each other to a rational and logical person. And so he did have a lot of reasons that were that could be perceived as rational for doing this, and in fact he had more of those than he did thoughts that undermined his understanding of the wrongfulness. Those thoughts would be, as you mentioned, he stated that he was jealous of Lauren, and that he was jealous of what Lauren had with her boyfriend, and that he, in a sense, was lonely and angry that he didn't have that. He also mentioned that he was mad that her boyfriend ain't no man, I think was the terminology that he used. I have a lot of notes on it actually, so let me look through here and see. There's a lot of different things that he said if you want me to go through that.
Take a moment.
He stated that it was not a spontaneous act, but a well-planned assassination. He said that he was upset that it was called a senseless act by Darrell Franklin, and he considered it a sophisticated assassination. He said that a lot of planning had gone into it. He mentioned that he had been thinking about this event kind of in some way for around a year. He said that he had done it to a degree for the thrill of it. Let's see what else. He believed that, in a sense, that the devil was going to protect him, that he would be caught for it. And so when actually, I take that, well, he had some conflicting information on that. He did say that he was surprised at first that he wasn't caught for it. He was very surprised. In fact, he thought that he was going to be caught immediately for it because he did it in broad daylight. He did it with a number of witnesses around. And so he thought he was going to be immediately caught. When he wasn't, that's when he started believing that maybe the devil was protecting him and concealing this from people. And he thought that he would get away with it. He also believed that he was going to be rewarded by this sacrifice, that he was maybe going to get fame, money, and possibly drugs. And so those were some of the other motivations that could be perceived as rational. I think there's probably more, but...
and you're familiar with the efforts that he made to conceal what he had done.
Yes. And let me come back to he stated that he believed that the football game occurring on that afternoon or evening would cause confusion, and that would... he said that he believed that the football game would cause confusion, and that might help conceal, what he was doing. He reported that he had a problem with females for quite some time and stated that this was like a vent letting off a hatred of females that he had let build up. He said, as we mentioned before, that he was jealous of Lauren and her boyfriend. He wanted what her boyfriend had with her. He said that her boyfriend enraged him. He reported that he'd been through a lot and kept hoping that things would get better, but he was jealous of her because things were only getting worse for him and things were good for her and her boyfriend.
Can I stop you right there? Did he mention that when he was watching them, when he started watching them, Lauren was in 7th grade and her boyfriend was in 8th grade in junior high?
Did he
ever
mention that to
you?
me?
Yeah.
I don't think he mentioned what grade they were in, no.
Okay. Did he ever mention to you that he was 20 years old at the time of the offense and Lauren was 13 and walking home from 8th grade junior high?
Yes, that was discussed.
So he knew the age of the victim?
He knew the age after, he learned of the age after the fact, and remember I was talking to him a year afterwards, but he'd learned of her age from news reports that she was 13.
He didn't tell you that the location of the offense, the murder and aggravated assault, was about 2 blocks from the junior high?
He did not tell me that.
I'm sorry, continue.
But I did know that from the report.
Okay.
Yep. So he said that it really boiled down to jealousy and that he killed Lauren because he was jealous of her boyfriend. He stated, as I mentioned before, that this was not a spontaneous event, it was not impulsive, it was a well-planned assassination. He said that he was upset that Daryl Franklin called it a senseless act and he considered it a sophisticated assassination. He said that he was going to put this in his skeleton closet so people would not know that they were around a killer. And he was planning on, not mentioning it to anyone if he wasn't caught.
Okay, so what he told you, was that something he told you? Or that's something that you...
No, that's something that he told, that you're talking about things that he just told me specifically?
No.
Oh, that was what he told Officer Casillas, I believe. It might have been Casillas, it might have been Killing Boy.
Okay, that he was going to put this in the skeleton in his closet?
In his skeleton closet, is the way he put it, yes.
And wasn't going to mention unless he was...
He was not planning on mentioning it. After he drove away that day, he was not planning on mentioning it to anyone.
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
He said that he killed her to prove that he was a man and to assert his manhood. he stated that he knew he had done something bad and that it hurt his heart afterwards because he thought the outcome was going to be different. He said that he did it for the thrill of it. He said that he I mentioned the vehicle. He said that he believed that he was going to be rewarded by all this, that it was a sacrifice of Lauren, that he was going to be able to be rewarded with smoking weed, having a nice house, being left alone, and having his own personal heaven. And he said that Lauren was an angel and he was taking a leap of faith by sacrificing her to the devil to get money like celebrities. He said that murder was the only thing a person could get away with and be rewarded for. He said that he believed this due to his belief that his stepfather, Brian Rowland, had gotten away with drowning women in bleach. And
So these are statements that you're saying are consistent with sanity?
these are statements that would appear to show that he had a knowledge of the wrongfulness. Isn't that what you asked?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I thought that's what you asked. Is that correct?
Sure.
Well, I want to make sure.
Continue, it's okay.
I want to make sure I'm answering your question properly. If you were asking about insanity, I can talk about those as well.
Well, let's finish this first.
Okay. I'm sorry, I must have misheard the question. But you'd like me to continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He said that he was already getting punished as if he murdered someone, so he may as well murder someone. He said that he became evil.
Excuse me, did he say why he was already being punished?
It had to do with the cult ideas and the religious beliefs. He believed that he was being persecuted and tormented. There were a lot of different things that he said about that. He said that he believed that he was being crucified, that people were torturing him, drinking
He
his
didn't
blood.
mention that he'd already been punished for something else and that murder was worth it?
During the course of the evaluation, he mentioned that he was on probation, if that's what you mean.
Did he mention anything about why he ultimately did the murder and it being worth it? Or anything to that effect?
Yeah, what I said before during examination, that he believed that Lauren couldn't actually die, that she was an angel, that he was sending her to heaven.
No, I'm talking about what you just mentioned, probation. What did he say about that?
Oh, he didn't mention it in that context, but I thought that's what you were asking about. I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
At any time did the defendant mention that he murdered Lauren Landavazo because murder was worth it? And you mentioned something about probation. What was that?
No, I only mentioned that because I thought that's what you were asking about. You said, did he have some other problem that he was having or some sort of legal problem, I thought.
Did he ever tell you that murdering Lauren Landavazo was something worth going to prison for?
He expressed a belief to Officers Vermillion and Officer Killingsworth that this was a sacrifice and that by him going into jail and either being incarcerated for the rest of his life or getting the death penalty.
Yes or no, did he ever indicate that murdering Lauren Landavazo was worth going to prison?
Yes.
And then, I'm sorry, can you continue your list if there's more?
He stated that he was trying to get money and get someone's attention with the sacrifice. He didn't say whose attention, but later on he did tell me at various times that he was trying to get God's attention. He believed that this sacrifice could go either way, that he could be punished or he could get money from the sacrifice. And I don't remember if I said this already, but he said that he became evil to fight evil.
And that shows the wrongfulness of his acts?
You were asking me for things that indicated a mental state that would look like he knew that what he was doing was wrong, correct?
And that though? That indicates that he knew what he was doing was wrong?
Well, he used the word evil. He was saying that he became evil.
So what you're saying is anytime he mentions the word evil, that shows the wrongfulness of his acts, the understanding of the wrongfulness of his acts?
Well, in that statement, he was acknowledging that what he did was evil. He said he became evil to fight evil, to try to fight evil.
Okay, so anytime he mentions that something's evil, or that equates to he understands the wrongfulness of his actions or his acts?
Evil is a word that we use to
Just
equate
yes or
with...
no. I mean, it's your opinion, and so I'm just trying to understand what your opinion is. If he says something regarding evil, does that equate to his understanding the wrongfulness of his acts?
I mean, I can't speak for every scenario where he'd ever use the word evil, because he might not even be using it in reference to himself or to this event or anything, but when he says something like that, he says, I became evil to try to fight evil, he was saying that what he was doing was evil.
And so evil in that situation equates with wrongfulness?
I mean, I think they're pretty synonymous.
Okay. I'm sorry, continue.
He said that he didn't want to kill himself. He had tried to kill himself previously. He felt like this was his only option, his only way out to avoid continued torture or persecution of himself, and also the persecution of the other people that he believed was going on. He said that he believed that getting a lethal injection was a much better choice than trying to kill himself again. He said that he wanted to have someone see what it felt like to have someone close to them taken away from them. And so I took that to mean that he wanted to see what it felt like to have Lauren taken away from her family who loves her. He said that he thought that he was...
Can I go back to that one? Can you say that one again?
He said that he wanted to have someone see what it felt like to have someone close taken away from them.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
He said that he thought he was going to get away with it and put it in his skeleton closet. Oh, I mentioned that one already, I'm sorry. He said that he was pissed that God had, quote, fucked him, and that he had had enough. He said that when he shot her in the head, quote, I knew that I killed her, and that was in his statement to the officers in the Crimes Against Persons room at the Wichita Falls Police Department. He said that it would happen again. I believe that when he said that, he was referring to the instant offense, and that he is the problem.
Okay, when he said it happened again, does that mean that he shoots someone and kills someone again?
That was
Is that your
my understanding of what he said, that that was with the officers, and they didn't really clarify with him what that meant. But from watching the video and listening to it, listening to that statement and watching it and going back and watching it, that was my understanding of it. He stated it's not right, referring to the murder, or at least that was in the context of the discussion of the killing of Ms. Lanavato. He said it says it's not right. He said that he killed Ms. Lanavato because he wanted to, quote, end the shit, meaning that everything that he was going through, and at that point he was referring to his interpersonal problems with his mother, not having money, his drug use. He said that he killed her because he had to put an end to him hassling his mother for drug money. He also said that he did it because he, quote, ran out of patience, and he called himself a few times an impatient person. He told Officer Casillas that killing Lauren was in God's plan, and that he was trying to tell God, here's my gift to you, after God sent him a bunch of bad ex-girlfriends. He called the murder a tragic event. He reported that he killed her to show people how he felt on the inside, and he said that now some other people can feel it as well. He said that she had no reason to die. She didn't do nothing wrong to me. That was his quote. He said that he could feel for her, and he said he didn't necessarily want that, referring to didn't necessarily want the killing to happen. He said that he did it to get attention from the community and that he, quote, sure got the birds chirping. That was in his statement to the officers. He reported that he was influenced by satanic killers such as Charles Manson and Richard Ramirez, or people that he characterized as satanic killers. He stated that he was happy that he was going to be on TV for the killing. He said that he did not want to attend Ms. Law&Crime memorial service because he was afraid that he would get caught, and also he did not want to show disrespect. And he said that he believed that he was the devil when he shot her. Again, that may not indicate wrongfulness, but the whole evil thing. And then he also stated, I feel bad I took that innocent girl's life. And those are things that I pulled out of my interview with him, and also my review of the records and my review of the interview with the officers.
And Doctor, when the defense attorney was asking you questions, you mentioned that there were more rational reasons than there were irrational reasons.
Yes, I don't know if I said rational versus irrational, but what I meant to say was they were more, if you just take up the quantity of times that he talked about different reasons, including jealousy or whatever, and you weigh those against the amount of times that he mentioned insane motivations for killing her, motivations that showed that he didn't understand the wrongfulness, yes, there were more of those in terms of number.
I believe in my notes I have that you testified before this jury that there are more rational reasons rather than irrational reasons for the murder of Lauren Londovazo and Michaela Smith.
If I use the words rational versus irrational, I was using them in the sense of an understanding of wrongfulness. So sanity versus insanity. Knowledge of the wrongfulness of the conduct.
Sure.
Thank you.
Austin has your notes, and we will see the jury back by 9 o'clock. Doctor, if you be back here at 8:45.